Crypto is full of irrational trading, a lot of attention grabbing, a lot of hype, a lot of people trying to push up their individual token, and so it's no question that Pudgy Penguins is one of those hype tokens. The question is, how much longer can this hype last? Because especially for meme coins, we are in a player versus player game, and things go up but also come down at some point. Nothing goes up forever, especially in this market. The question is, what is a typical top in terms of market cap for similar kinds of tokens? And at what point in time does it make sense potentially to take some chips off the table for the Pengu token? Now, the straightforward answer is to just look at the US dollar chart in the past. And it's probably no coincidence that the top that we saw a few days ago very much aligns with the top on the 6th of January of this year. It's a bit like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? It's all psychology. There's no inherent value in meme coins. So if enough people think that the price is comparatively high, then enough people might sell and not buy that much anymore. Thus, the price goes down. So it's all just self-fulfilling. If enough people think it's cheap to buy, then the price might bottom. If enough people think it's too high, the price might peak. And so some people say that technical analysis has no value at all. But again, I don't think that those kinds of tops form just by coincidence. But we can dive a bit deeper. This is now Pudgy Penguin relative to Solana. Now, interestingly enough, the Pengu token did outperform Solana over the last months. From the top of the end of last year to the top that was recently formed, there's a slight gain of 6%. But of course, 6% is not why we get into a token like this. Now here's something that's slightly more interesting. This is now Pudgy Penguins relative to all of crypto. Because Solana did outperform the rest of the market and the Pengu token was able to ride that wave, Pudgy Penguins did better than the rest of the altcoin market by roughly 24%. But again, this doesn't really answer the question at what point in time it makes sense to sell. Because the US dollar chart aligning with the tops is not necessarily a sufficient criterion. Let's have a look at the leading meme coins on the Solana chain. Pudgy Penguins is not at number 1. That place is reserved for Bonk. And then at number 3, we've got the official Trump token, we've got Fartcoin, we've got Dog with Head. What's interesting about Bonk and Pudgy Penguins is that they got launched very similarly. It's not a token that organically grew, where initially the community was very small and then it just spread over time. Instead, both of them, both Pudgy Penguins and Bonk, were projects that were launched by the centralized exchanges, where the listing on the centralized exchanges was there from the day one. And so here we see the relative valuation of Pudgy Penguins to Bonk, and that interestingly enough does align quite well again. But here are the similarities. Bonk is an inflationary meme coin. Usually meme coins aren't really that inflationary. Dogecoin is because of the mining. It's its own blockchain. But in general, most meme coins don't have an expanding supply. That's different for Bonk. For Bonk, the early contributors get access to more and more tokens, and that puts potential sell pressure on the token. Now, early contributors obviously also means the centralized exchanges and the market makers. And that's why they're interested in creating more volatility in the token and potentially pushing the token up. Here's Pudgy Penguins, and this looks very similar, right? Again, the current and future team, as well as the company, gets tokens over time. Another interesting similarity is that both tokens have very similar amounts of liquidity on the Solana chain. Most trading happens on the centralized exchanges, but on Solana chain, we also have 600K worth of liquidity, and that's true for both tokens. Now, Bonk has been around for quite a bit longer, and so the supply has already expanded quite a bit, and so the speculation around the token has also slowed down quite a bit, especially on the perpetual futures market, on the levered bets on the price. So this is where we get into the first differences between Bonk and Pudgy Penguins. Here is the long-term open interest weighted funding rate. That tends to be positive most of the time for Bonk. That's not necessarily true for Pudgy Penguins. Sometimes people are very bearish on the token, and the shorts have to pay the longs in order to bet on falling prices. Here's the open interest on Bonk over time. And just have a look at how much the spot market follows the open interest. As there is less bets on the price and the open interest collapses, the spot market tends to follow. And currently in Bonk, we see again how open interest tends to rather decline again. It peaked out at very similar levels. But those peaks are only at 60 to 70 million worth of open interest. That's very different to Pudgy Penguins. Here we've got 500 to 600 million worth of open interest. So really the speculation now is with Pengu. It's not with Bonk. Notice also how the trading volume on the perpetual futures is correlated with the price. Here we've got Bonk, which currently is at a high level, and here we've got Pudgy penguins. Of course, ideally we want to buy when open interest is low, we want to buy when trading volume is low. Currently both is high. The question again is, how much higher can it go potentially? And I think the best way to look at this is to compare market caps. Now Bonk and Pudgy penguins are the largest market caps on the Solana chain when it comes to meme coins. But then we've also got larger meme coins on the Ethereum chain. So it's very unlikely that Pudgy penguins is going to make a 3, 4, 5x from here, because then it would flip Pepe, potentially Shiba Inu. And the Solana chain isn't really that large relative to Ethereum in terms of its total value locked. But let's have a look at those other meme coins on the Solana chain. At what point did they actually turn around? Because again, meme coins tend to pump and subsequently dump. And the question is, how can we time the top properly? At what top, at what market cap do those meme coins tend to turn around? When are they inflated that much that it takes so much additional capital to push it higher that it's very hard to push it higher that it actually turns around? Let's have a look at a Pump.fun ecosystem token. So here is Gozeus Maximus, or the GOAT token, that peaked at roughly $1.2 billion. Here we've got Fartcoin that peaked at 2.1 billion. Here we've got Peanut the Squirrel that peaked at 1.8. Then we've got Popcat that peaked at $1.9 billion. Here we've got Dog with Hat, and that moved to a whole different level. The peak was at $4.5 billion. And let's now have a look at Bonk. Bonk also peaked at roughly 4 billion. And again, now it's at 2.7. And then we've got Pudgy penguins that in the past peaked at 2.7 billion and is currently at 2.3. So what do we learn from this? Historically, Solana meme coins tended to peak somewhere around the $2 billion mark, but we do have outliers where it went all the way to 4 billion roughly, 4.5 billion. And that then gives us an upper range for something like Pudgy penguins or Bonk, which are currently at very similar market caps. I think the likelihood that Pudgy penguins is going to deflate sometime in the future is very, very high. We're likely going to see a Pudgy penguins at $1 billion, maybe 1 or 2 years from now. The question is always, when does this turn around? There are two potential ways to approach this. The first way is to try to continue riding the wave, potentially with a trailing stop loss. So as the price is rising, we can adjust our stop loss, and then when we turn around, we exit very, very quickly, because we don't want to get dumped on, right? We don't want to be part of the potential bear market that's very likely going to follow. The second way to approach this is to already bet on falling prices, but to do this in a way not to get liquidated in case Pudgy penguins hits, say, $5 or $6 billion. So we don't use a lot of leverage. We've got a lot of buffer. We are okay to go in the negatives, potentially even doubling down on the position as we rise. And then we're simply just betting on a turnaround at around 5-6 billion, potentially earlier, potentially at $4 billion. Now, I don't have a crystal ball either. I do not know if Pudgy penguins or Bonk will also turn around at the historical levels where all of those other meme coins turned around. But I think the likelihood is very high, right? This is what usually happens in crypto. We get a lot of excitement, then a lot of disappointment, and then the next big thing gets trendy again. It's all about playing the probabilities, right? It's all about trying to figure out what's most likely going to happen. Is it very likely that Pengu or Bonk is going to flip Dogecoin and make another 10x? Or is it more likely that the same fate will happen as did with all the other Solana meme coins, where it first runs up to a certain level and then deflates again? I think the second scenario is more likely, and so that's where I am putting my money. Now, I'm trying to approach this channel here slightly differently to other crypto YouTubers. Most crypto YouTubers, they take money from other crypto projects, or maybe they buy into a small crypto project. They have some vested interest and then afterwards promote it on the channel, and then potentially with all of that additional interest, which pushes up the price, they then dump on the following. I never do this. I never promote any individual cryptocurrency that I previously bought. I also never take any money from any crypto project. I try to be as neutral as possible. I try to have no conflict of interest interest here. Most other channels also don't show their trading history, as in how successful are they. And they're also not willing to share the trades in real time, maybe allow for copy trading. But I'm willing to do this. This is my personal return, so that's the black line, relative to if I had just dollar cost averaged into Bitcoin. That's the light gray line. This is a monthly chart, so this is roughly 4 years of data, a bit less than that. And this outperformance here comes from relative valuation bets, right? We talked about this several times on the channel. Most altcoins tend to do worse than Bitcoin most of the time. And we can make money from that, right? From all of that token inflation. When the insiders dump on the retail investor, when the KOLs dump on the retail investor, when the early venture capitalists, when they get their token allocation and then dump on the retail investor, then there's actually a chance to make money from that by betting on the altcoins to do worse compared to Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. Because Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana doesn't have that much token inflation. All those smaller, crappy altcoins do. And so long term, they tend to just do worse. And so I made a lot of that outperformance with borrowing and lending platforms. So I borrowed a bad altcoin and then swapped it into Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. That's how I made this delta. I then moved over the strategy to perpetual futures. I did this for 2.5 months. And that worked out even better. I did this with some experimental money, 40K, and it returned almost 50% over those 2.5 months. Of course, there's some volatility in this, but still 50%. And so as I did this and as I shared my trades in real time with the premium members, I got more and more requests. Can't I just open a capital pool? I deposit to that pool and you do the trading for me. And I finally just started that. So this is now 6 days ago. We started the copy trading vault. It's already up 3.5%, but of course we don't know how this develops long term. We are now moving more capital, but I'm offering this to the annual subscribers of premium. So there's a dedicated tutorial how to deposit to the Bitcoin strategy copy trading vault. That's on the platform called Hyperliquid. It's an 18-minute video. It explains everything step by step. And then you don't have to follow the individual trades that I share, but instead you just get the exact same performance that I get. Both the gains, but also potentially the hard times. Nobody knows how this is going long term. It worked very well with borrowing and lending platforms. It worked very well on my first test initially. And I'm working hard that it will continue to work as I'm trading with your capital. But yeah, you can still execute the trades yourself. I'm still sharing this all in real time in premium. You can also discuss potential opportunities with the community. Right here are some example trades. But the active approach is for people that don't have as much capital, but that do have some time. So that's for the monthly membership. That's currently at $125 per month. If you don't have the time, then you can simply subscribe for the yearly membership. Then I will send you all the information how to enter the copy trading. And that's for people that have more capital, but of course less time. The yearly membership, by the way, also saves some money, $250 per year. So you're only paying for 10 out of 12 months. If it's your first time here, feel free to subscribe. I publish these regularly. A like would be very much appreciated as well. It helps the channel grow. See you next time on YouTube or see you in premium. Cheers.